the sorry, this is my morning voice. So, oh, John, slow down, very slow. Go ahead.
We cannot hear the harmonium.
Asodana Jajana Jajana Asodana Vanachana Hare Hare Ram Hare 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Naranam namaskritya naram chaiva naruttamam divim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet nasta prayashavadre suntyam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. So we're reading from the fifth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, cream of the crop of the Vedic literature. This is the story of King Rishabhadev. Rishabhadev kind of was, I wouldn't say forced, because God is never forced to do anything, but he was coerced in a nice way to appear, because the king wanted a son for him that was as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and just said, nah, no will happen. This, I'm one without a second, so I gotta show up myself. So there is the appearance of King Rishabhadev summarized. And here is speaking to his sons. He had 100 sons. And he gave very good advice that Rameshwari Mataji explained yesterday. So he's continuing, just giving a little info. So I'm going to just read the verse myself for time's sake, because today's appearance and disappearance of several Vaishnavas and even a deity. So we have to read from other sources as well. Tamashayam Hridaya Granthi Bandham Vidyayasi Saditam Aprahamata Anena Yogena Yatupadesham Samyag Vyapohya Parameta Yoga Karma Ashrayam, the desire for fruitive activities, Hridaya Granthi, the knot in the heart, Bandham, bondage, Vidyaya, because of ignorance, Asaditam, brought about Apramata, not being covered by ignorance or illusion, very careful. Unena, by this, Yogena, practice of yoga, Yata Upadesham, as advised, Samyak, completely, Vyapohya, becoming free from Parameta, one should desist yoga from the practice of yoga, the means of liberation. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. As I have advised you, my dear sons, you should act accordingly. Be very careful. By these means, you will be freed from ignorance of the desire for fruitive activity, and the knot of bondage in the heart will be completely severed. For advancement, you should also give up the means. That is, you should not become attached to the process of liberation itself. If I knew you were here, I would have had you sit here. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the process of liberation is Brahma Jigyasa, the search for the absolute truth. Generally, Brahma Jigyasa is called Neti Neti, the process by which one analyzes existence to search out the absolute truth. This method continues as long as one is not situated in his spiritual life. Spiritual life is Brahmabhuta, self-realized state. In the words of Bhagavad Gita, 1854, Brahmabhuta prasana, mana shochati na kankshati, sama sarveshu bhuteshu, madbhaktim labhate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at one realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. End of quote. The idea is to enter into the para bhakti, the transcendental devotional service of the Supreme Lord. To attain this, one must analyze one's existence, but when one is actually engaged in devotional service, he should not bother seeking out knowledge. By simply engaging in devotional service undeviatingly, one will always remain in the liberated condition. Mamchayo Vyavicharena Bhakti Yogena Sevate Sagunan Samati Tiritan Brahmabhuyaya Kalpate. It's possible to turn that sound, please? The unflinching execution of devotional service is in itself Brahmabhuta. Another important feature in this connection is Anena Yogena Yutopadesham, The instructions received from the spiritual master must be followed immediately. One should not deviate from or surpass the instructions of the spiritual master. One should not be simply intent on consulting books, but should simultaneously execute the spiritual master's order. Mystic power should be achieved to enable one to give up the material conception. But when one is actually engages in devotional service, one does not need to practice the mystic yoga system. Point is that one can give up the practice of yoga, but devotional service cannot be given up. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Atmaramascha munayo nigrantapyu urukrame kulvanti haitukim bhaktim itam bhuta gunohari. This is also quoted in the Madhya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the same literal verse. Even those who are liberated, Atmarama, must always engage in devotional service. One may give up the practice of yoga when one is self-realized, but at no stage can one give up devotional service. All other activities for self-realization, including yoga and philosophical speculation, may be given up, but devotional service must be retained at all times. Do you all have pillows to sit on? The verse again. As I have advised you, my dear sons, you should act accordingly. Be very careful. By this means, you will be freed from the ignorance of the desire for fruitive activity, and the knot of bondage in the heart will be completely severed. For further advancement, you should also give up the means. That is, you should not become attached to the process of liberation itself. Shri Gurave Namaha. Kam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yatkripatam Tumham Bandi Shigurundinataram Paramananda Maharam Shri Chaitanya Mishwaram Vanchakalpataruyascha Kripa Sindhuvyavacha Patitanam Vonevyu Vaishnavivyu Namo Namaha. Oh, thank you for coming to Gita Nagari. Hope you are having a grand time of your lives here. This is a holy place, so don't be surprised if you feel some tightening of the screws in your spiritual life. You may feel some existential angst or other such symptoms. That is normal when you meet a saintly person or go to a holy place. This will happen. The process will be accelerated. King Rishabhadeva was giving very good advice, and particularly before and in a previous verse, he tells his sons, forget about sense gratification. Like, easy, right? Like I'm telling you, forget about sense gratification. You're not going to make it. You're not going to get the results that you want. This is the pull of modes, the lower modes of nature. Modes of nature want to enjoy. The characteristics are different for different modes. The mode of passion, which is very prevalent, impels you to fixate on a particular object. That object appears to be reachable by different means. But there's a catch. The result of the mode of passion is exactly the opposite of what you want. So you want to squeeze pleasure out of something, well, you're going to get misery for that. Exactly in the same amount. And then, of course, it will create some dependency, and then you will be allured and forced, just like a drug. Like the drug in the beginning may give some impetus, some pleasure, and then as the pleasure diminishes, the desire continues, and the addiction begins, and then it's very difficult to give up. Very difficult. The process is arduous and long, and it's just very bothersome from beginning to end. And the pleasure, which is what we pursue in the first place, is actually becomes smaller and smaller. Just as the desire and the addiction increases, the pleasure becomes smaller and smaller. Take any situation in life. Take Please turn that off. Take the feast last night. Did you guys enjoy the feast? Yes. Yeah, yeah. It was a clincher. So, um, what if when you're done, really done, when you already have 6 pieces of Parmesan and 2 cups of nectar, and you are somebody comes very politely and says, "Have you enjoyed the meal?" Yes, yeah, totally. Okay, now you have to eat the same amount again. Oh no, no. Oh Jesus, no. Krishna, no, no, please. But you're forced to do it. Well, okay, you may survive the experience. I've seen devotees do it, so it's not a big deal. But when you're done with that, somebody comes and said, "I'm glad you enjoy the meal. You're gonna have to eat it again." Same person. The very things that you so much desire, it becomes a source of distress. This is the trick of Maya. This is the sense gratification that we are looking for is the very source of our distress. If you increase the amount, if you actually do it. Same with sex, same with traveling. Like when you ask someone, I don't know now after pandemic, but used to be that if you ask people, what do you want to do? They will say, oh, I would love to travel the world. Well, I've done that. And it was, to me, it was like, oh, okay, they're inviting you to do kirtan in the Baltic countries, and then you have to go to Hungary, and then to the Czech Republic, then to Ukraine, and to, oh my God, it was such a distressful time. Like sitting on an airplane, breathing recycle half air because they only tune the oxygen to 50%. The cockpit, the captain, and so on, they get 100%. The cabin gets recycle 50% oxygen, and then you have to sit in a chair that is extremely uncomfortable for a number of hours, sharing smells and uh, screaming children and bad food. And I don't know if you know this, but when they serve the meat, the plane starts to shake every time. I've noticed it just innumerable times. The plane starts to shake. Like nature is giving an indication this is not right. You should not be doing this. And traveling was becoming a source of distress. Of course, the goal was good. Oh, I want to give a seminar here or kirtan there, and want to meet devotees, I'm going to see DDs, etc., etc. But it became a source of distress. Matter of fact, one year, can't really remember what year it was. We went to, must have been 12 countries in less than 10 weeks. And that included like nearly 40 cities. And we're carrying luggage because in Europe they don't have usually public laundromats, and people have small refrigerators and small washing machines. So we just tried to carry as many clothes as we could, so we could just be in a place for several days without having to wash anything until we got to a proper place. So we were carrying too much luggage, and eventually we flew. The last country was Italy, so we flew to Rome, and then we were supposed to go to the carousel where you pick up the luggage, but I didn't have a ticket stubs, and you need to know your flight. At least you need to know where your flight came from, what country it came from. And neither my wife or I could remember what country we were just in. We had spent several days there. We could not remember. So I had to make a quick calculation. It was the morning, so the sun was on this side of the plane. So that means we were going south. So we came from the north. What countries are above Italy? Switzerland, Austria, Poland, Germany. Yeah, that's about it. So we looked at the sign and we saw a flight that came from Frankfurt, and we just gambled that, okay, maybe we were in Germany this morning. So we went there, and fortunately, we found our luggage. But that made us decide not to do that again, not to travel so much, because it was very distressful. Chanakya Pandit, matter of fact, said that journey acts as old age to men, as celibacy to women. That doesn't mean that women need to be promiscuous to look young. It simply means that when they have children, they actually remain younger. Uh, Heat to clothes, and you know that if you have any favorite piece of cloth and you put them in the dryer enough times, you're not gonna have much left. And confinement to horses. So if you put a horse in confinement, the horse will age maturely. So journey acts as old age to men. What Chanakapani meant is if you go 10 kilometers a month in an ox cart, you may age rapidly. Not if you go 800 miles an hour at 35,000 feet every week, like the sannyasis do. Uh, that will kill you. That will kill you. So this is the result of just I expanded on a particular point about sense gratification, how the same source of sense gratification can become the source of distress. So why give it up? Because there is no ulterior benefit. There is no point in which we can say, okay, I have achieved satiation from my desires. I don't have any more desires. Like, even if you overdo it, right? Like ice cream. Who doesn't like ice cream? Anybody doesn't like ice cream? I didn't think I was gonna find any anyone. You don't like ice cream? Okay, well, you're weird. Um, most people like ice cream. And what do you like? Douglas? That's there you go. So, well, Douglas for you is ice cream for us. You like ice cream, but you're forced to eat ice cream over and over, and then you get brain freeze. And for example, I lived in Chile in 1981 and 1982, and we were very poor at the temple. So we will go to the farmers market, do Harinam, and somebody in the we hire one of those guys who rides a bicycle that has a big box in the front, like in third world countries you see often, and the guy will just ride behind us, behind the Harinam, and people at the farmers market they knew, here is the Hare Krishnas, so we'll just donate vegetables, so they will throw them in the box. So that's how we ate. But the caveat was that most of the what we got was cilantro because it was cheap because everybody grew cilantro. So we at the temple we had cilantro everything: cilantro soup, cilantro rice, cilantro sabji, cilantro halava, whatever. It was awful. So the concomitant result is that for 10 years after being in Chile, I didn't want to see cilantro. That was just, I think I was done. I was done with that. Eventually, it regained the taste. And this is what happens uh, when we get overly saturated with sense gratification, that the taste goes away because of the memory associated with it. But then eventually you forget. You forget everything. Nixon came back, we'll vote for him probably because we forget how much of a crook he was. So this is what happened. Is history repeats itself because our memory is very short and very bad. So in any case, um, the sons of Rishabhadev are not ordinary beings. They're listening very carefully, and they convey, as Prabhupada says, the order of the spiritual master should be fulfilled immediately. Of course, we have the example of Srila Prabhupada, who heard his spiritual master. The first order that Srila Prabhupada received was to spread Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking countries. And it took him a while, because of the circumstances, and it's fine. You can prepare. It's not like you can improvise and go half baked and do everything. You need to be prepared to do. So it took him a few years, but look at the result by following the order of spiritual master. My own Guru Maharaj, Hridayananda Das Goswami, the first order that he got from Srila Prabhupada was he was studying at Berkeley University, and he had one semester to go, and it was in 1969. And if you know anything about American history, that was upheaval and demonstrations against the Vietnam War, and people were into experimenting with free love and drugs and everything else. So it was a very difficult atmosphere to concentrate on an academic career. So obviously he was part of the milieu, and he was at all these places. So he was kind of failing, not really failing, but just lost complete interest, even though he had one semester to go. So he joined the Hare Krishna movement and asked Srila Prabhupada, I have one semester to go, what should I do? And Prabhupada said, go back to school and finish. You have to be educated in order to preach to similarly educated people and attract them to Krishna consciousness. You have to be educated yourself. Of course, he was 19 years old, something like that. And at 19, you have an amount of passion that just boils over and impedes you from thinking with your organ. Your brain is not a muscle, okay, but it should be exercised regularly. And this is what happened during youth, that it gets atrophiated because you don't use it very much. You use impulses and whatever other organ tells you to act. That's what you go with. So at that point, he thought, well, I'd rather go on Harinam, and there were a few books to distribute, so he did that and preaching and etc. etc. But eventually, many years later, he realized that was the order from Srila Prabhupada. The first order he got was the order that shaped his life from then on. So that's what he did. So we may get, even casually perhaps, an order from our guru and may consider, well, yeah, I know, but that's not so important. I'm doing other things, I'm doing different projects and so on. But that may shape the rest of our life. So we have to calculate very carefully and look back and review all these instructions. All right. So let's move on because we have a few appearances. First one, well, there's a lot to read. Ordinarily, I would ask for questions, comments, contentions, but we have to move on. So sorry. Yeah, we can talk later if you have anything. Today is the appearance of Madhavendra Puri as well as the appearance of Srinivas Acharya. And how much time are we able to gather to read, because there's a lot to say about Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri was a senior to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his god brother. Ishwara Puri became the guru of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in the Goragana Tipika, it says that Puri was the Kalpavriksha tree expert in all methods of devotional service. So not an ordinary being. Actually, there are no ordinary beings in the Vaishnava tradition. You have to be extraordinary to become a Vaishnava. Even though you may not think that, even though, as is the case often, others may not think that you're extraordinary, still no ordinary being will become a Krishna Bhakta. Why? Because Krishna is very selective, very careful, and he doesn't give himself to others. He may give, of course, mystic powers or magic or of that sort, and material opulence and things like that. But those are considered ballast. Just like if you are in a vessel that is flying and is nose diving, you want to throw away, or a boat, anything that is forcing you to sink, you want to throw away. So Krishna will give you all that ballast, but it's finally amounts to nothing, nothing, because so what will take you back to Krishna is devotional service, because it's so attractive that attracts Krishna himself. So at that point, if you even a hint of devotional service, you should consider that this person is not ordinary, has gotten the gift of Krishna consciousness to whatever extent. So let's read a little bit about Srimad Madhavendra Puri, then we have to probably skip to go into the others. Mahaprabhu's seniors, his parents and gurus, are all his servants and eternal associates, and they take their birth prior to his appearance in order to serve him in their own way. Whenever Krishna descends to the earth, he first sends down his elders. These include his father, mother, guru, and all other persons he considers to be the objects of his respect. He arranges that this person should accept birth before he does. Madhavendra Puri, Ishwar Puri, Sachi, Jagannath, and Advaita Acharya are amongst those who appear in this way. That's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Later in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the same thing is stated in the following way. Whenever the son of a king of Braj decides to appear on earth in order to fulfill a particular desire, he first sends down his seniors. I will briefly name some of them, as it is not possible to mention everyone. Sachi Devi, Jagannath Mishra, Madhava Puri, Keshava Bharati, Ishwara Puri, Advaita Acharya, Srivas Pandit, Acharya Ratna, Pundarika Vidyanidhi, Haridas Thakur. Madhavendra Puri appeared in the 14th century. He was a guru of the Brahma or Madhva Sampradaya, one of the four Brahma, Shirudra, Sanaka, Vaishnava lineages that purify the world in the age of Kali. The Madhva lineage has been transcribed in books like Gaurakanadesha Tipika, Prameya Ratnavali, and the writings of Gopal Guru Goswami. The same set of verses is found with some slight differences in the Bhakti Ratnakar. The following is the version found in Gaurakanadesha Tipika. Brahma, the master of the universe, was the disciple of the Lord of the spiritual world. His disciple was Narada, and Vyasa became the disciple of Narada. Shuka became the disciple of Vyasa through the endowment of spiritual knowledge. Madhvacharya took initiation in the Krishna mantra from Vyasa. His disciple, actually Madhvacharya, who's sitting over there, the other one, the dust, this is the dust. The other one, there is, in the disciplic succession, sometimes there is a gap. Not that there is a gap between guru and disciple, but there is a gap in time. So between Srila Vyasadeva and Madhvacharya, there's 1,000 years. So how does that work? How does that work? Because guru, disciple, they're present, they're interacting. So how does it happen? Because Vyasadeva is still around. That's why. So Madhvacharya, I guess, went to the Himalayas and took initiation from Vyasa 1,000 years after Vyasa appeared. Okay. His disciple was Padmanabhacharya, whose disciple was Narahari, who was followed by Madhadadvija. Akshobhya was his disciple, then Jayatirtha, Gyanasindhu, Mahanidhi, Vidyanidhi, and Rajendra followed. Jayadharma Muni was one of Rajendra's many disciples, and Vishnupuri, the author of Bhakti Ratnavali, and Purushottam, the lover of Brahman culture, became his disciples. Vyasatirtha, the author of Vishnu Samhita, was a disciple of Purushottam. Lakshmipati Tirtha, a reservoir of devotion, was Vyasatirtha's disciple. Madhavendra Puri was a disciple of Lakshmipati, and it is by him that this religion was founded. His disciple, the sannyasi Ishvarapuri, took up the mood of conjugal devotion, while Advaitacharya, also the disciple of Madhavendra, took up moods of servitude and friendship. Gora accepted Ishvarapuri as his guru and then flooded the material and spiritual worlds with love. So we think, oh, come on, get to the nectar, bunch of names. But I came to a different conclusion when I was reading. I think it was, what could be Narottam Vilas, Prema Vilas, one of those books. Yes, I think it was Prema Vilas, that had a list of names, a whole page, such and 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 such, and I was reading them like, okay, just out of the kindness of my heart, I was reading the words. But these are our family. You probably want to meet your family. If you discover all of a sudden you go to a family meeting and there is a couple cousins and uncles and just distant relatives you never met, they're quite interesting. You want to meet them. So these are our relatives. We should pay attention. So and they're all very interesting. They all have a history and they're all Vaishnavas. So they are most dear to Krishna. And if they're dear to Krishna, they should be dear to us. Thus, Madhavendra Puri was a disciple of Lakshmi Patitirtha. Madhavendra Puri's disciples included Ishwara Puri, Advaitacharya, Paramananda Puri, a Brahmin from a Tirhut area, Brahmananda Puri, Sri Ranga Puri, Pundarika Vidyanidhi, Raghupati Upadhyaya, and others. Nityananda Prabhu is said by some to be Madhavendra Puri's disciple. Others said that Lakshmipati was his guru, while the Prema Vilas states that he was Ishwara Puri's disciple. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, Madhavendra Puri was a well-known sannyasi of the Madhva Sampradaya. His grand disciple was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prior to his appearance, there was no evidence of Prema Bhakti in the Madhva line. In this verse, Aidina Dayatra Natha, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the seed of religious doctrines of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can be found. To this, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada adds, Madhavendra Puri was the first shoot of the desired tree of divine love that came out of the Madhva lineage. Prior to his appearance, there was no sign of the conjugal mood of devotion in the Madhva line. So it's a very important personality. And then there are pages on Madhavendra Puri. I'm going to just read one particular incident, which is well known, the story of Chirachora Gopinath. While on his way to the south, Madhavendra stopped at Advaitacharya's house in Shantipur and initiated him. From there, he went on until he arrived in Remuna. Remuna is between Orissa and Bengal. It's probably, we'll say, it's about 11 hours by train between Puri and Kolkata. So it's probably a few hours. I think it's closer to Kolkata than it is to Puri, even though it is in Orissa. Madhavendra was overwhelmed with love and started singing his name and danced for some time in ecstasy. He asked one of Gopinath's Brahmins servants what foods were offered to the deity. The Brahmin answered, in the evening we give Gopinath 12 bowls of Amrita Kali, a thickened milk preparation that is like the nectar of the gods. It is famous everywhere as Gopinath's Kshira, and no offering anywhere in the world is its equal. As the Brahmin spoke, other servants of Gopinath started to make the Amrita Kali offering to their deity. Madhavendra thought that if he could just get a taste of this preparation, he would be able to one day make it himself and offer it to his own Gopal. However, this very thought shamed him, as it is improper to desire the food intended for the Lord. After watching the Arctic ceremony, Madhavendra went outside and sat in the empty marketplace, chanting the holy names. Madhavendra followed Ayachakavriti, which means he would never ask for food from anyone and only accepting the food that was spontaneously offered to him. He was able to do this because he never felt hunger or thirst, as he was constantly engaged in drinking the nectar of prema. That kept him satisfied. In the meantime, the pujari had finished his duties and was taking rest when he had a vision of a deity in a dream telling him, "Get up, open the door. I have put a bowl of Kshira outside for the sannyasi. It is hidden behind the pleats of my dhoti. You did not see me put it there because of my Maya. The sannyasi, whose name is Madhavapuri, is sitting in the marketplace. Quickly take this Kshira to him." The pujari was startled by the dream and immediately got up. He bathed, opened the door to the altar, and found a bowl of the Kshira behind the deity's cloth, just as he had been told. He took the bowl and went to find Madhavendra Puri. He wandered through the market shouting, "I have Kshira here for Madhavapuri. Gopinath has stolen it for you. Take it and eat it with joy, for there is no person as fortunate as you in the three worlds." When Madhavendra heard the pujari shouting in this way, he approached him and identified himself. The pujari gave him the Kshira and then fell at his feet. He recounted the whole story to Madhavendra, sending him into paroxysms of divine love for Krishna. He respectfully ate the prasad and then, after washing the clay bowl, broke it into many small pieces and wrapped them up in his outer garment. Each day thereafter, he would eat a piece of the clay bowl. Once again, feel the same ecstatic love. Knowing that word of his miracle would spread by morning, Narendra Puri became fearful of the celebrity that would inevitably befall him and the crowds of people that would then surround him. So he paid his obeisance and took Gopinath and left for Puri before dawn. Exactly the opposite of someone nowadays would do. Like immediately he will create a YouTube channel and tweet it, this happened to me, come and see me, hit, subscribe, like me, etc., etc. Madhavendra Puri wanted none of that. When Madhavendra arrived in Jagannath Puri, he visited Lord Jagannath and became ecstatic with love at seeing him. News of the miracle at Remuna had reached Puri even before he had, and countless people came to see him and pay him their respects. The nature of fame in this world is well known. Even if one does not seek it, it comes anyway as a result of one's destiny. Though Madhavendra Puri was afraid of being distracted by celebrity and ran away from it, when one has love for God, then celebrity comes flowing to him without being sought. Even though Madhavendra Puri wanted to avoid the attention that Krishna bestowed on him, he was not able to flee because he was committed to finding the sandalwood he had promised to bring Gopal. He went to the servants and directors of the Jagannath temple and explained his mission. Those who had contacts with the king interceded and collected both sandalwood and camphor on his behalf. Then they arranged for another Brahmin and a servant to travel with him and help him carry the load. The king also gave him an official exemption paper to help him avoid custom duties. On his return route, Madhavendra Puri stopped in Remuna again. Once again, he danced and sang kirtan before Gopinath in a state of loving absorption and accepted the Kshira Prasad from the pujari. That night, he slept in the temple. Once again, he had a vision of Gopal, who spoke to him as follows: "Listen, Madhava, I have already received all the sandalwood and camphor. Now grind it into a paste and smear it on Gopinath's body. Gopinath and I are one and the same person. If you give him the sandalwood, I will feel the cooling effect. Don't hesitate. Don't doubt this message at all. Just believe me," and give Gopinath the sandalwood on my order. After having his dream, Madhavendra Puri summoned Gopinath's pujaris and servants to let them know what Gopal had done. The pujaris were very happy to hear that Gopinath would be getting sandalwood paste, as it was the middle of the summer. Madhavendra had his two companions, as well as two other people from the temple, daily grind the sandalwood into a paste. He stayed in Remuna until it had all been used up in Gopinath's service. At the end of the summer season, with the coming of the rains, Madhavendra returned to Puri, where he observed Chaturmasya and demonstrated the exemplary character of his love for Krishna. Gopal gave Madhavendra Puri the order to bring him sandalwood paste to show the world the depth of his love. It was a great effort for Madhavendra to bring the sandalwood as far as Remuna, but he experienced it as a joy and not a difficulty. Gopal gave Madhavendra this commission in order to test him, but when he passed the test, he was merciful to his devotee. So we think sometimes that oh, Krishna is putting me through so many tribulations and I have to do this and that. But, I've thought carefully about this point, and I had to remind myself which ones were the times where I made the most spiritual advancement. It's not that I made much of it, but what were the times where I actually made solid, consistent, palpable spiritual advancement? And I concluded that it was at times of quite some distress. I was forced to do things that I didn't want to do, work under authorities that I didn't care for or they didn't care for me. These were the times of struggle in my life, and these were the times when spiritual advancement came naturally. So we should take all circumstances as incentives in our practice. Like, all of a sudden, oh, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I should be. Because as soon as you start chanting, you feel some kind of relief. So you think, oh, the path is going to be like this. This is good. So you identify Krishna consciousness with relief, and then you pursue relief instead of Krishna consciousness. Just like when you start chanting, you feel pleasure, right? Is this everybody's experience when the first time you started chanting Hare Krishna? You thought, oh my God, this is so good. Even japa, right? Even japa, imagine that. You got pleasure out of chanting japa. And then you thought, you equated Krishna consciousness with relief. And then what did Krishna do? Well, maybe not in your case. Maybe you're still enjoying your rounds, that. But what did Krishna do? He took the pleasure away out of that and converted it into, could be mistakenly viewed as a chore. So he wants to see if you're attracted to him, to his holy name, or you're attracted to the pleasure that you derive from it. But the goal is to please Krishna, not to please ourselves. That's the right order. So those who actually understand this, they will make advancement, and they will, even if, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, pain in your service will be my greatest pleasure. If that's what Krishna wants, if pain is what you have to experience, if distress is what you have to experience in order to become Krishna conscious, then you should derive great satisfaction because it's in the service of Krishna. Okay. So today is also the appearance of Srinivasacharya. He's a superstar in our lineage, and it's almost 8 o'clock. I don't have much time to say much about Srinivas. Also, the appearance of Radha Ramandev, him, the most handsome, absolutely. If you ever see him, you totally fall in love. And this particular picture, I do have a lila connected with. I was in New York City at the Brooklyn Temple in 1986. I had a center in New Haven, Connecticut, and I will go to New York for half the week to distribute books at JFK Airport. So I was staying in the Brahmachari ashram. I don't know how things are now, but it was in the 4th floor. And I didn't know there was a 5th floor, which was the terrace. And one day in the middle of the winter, I ventured to the 5th floor. And I was very surprised to see that there was a Tulsi house. Very healthy, beautiful looking Tulsis growing very nicely. So I went inside the Tulsi house and I paid my obeisances. And when I paid my obeisances, I could see through my legs on the further wall that there was a picture upside down of a deity. And it was not touching the floor for some reason. I was, okay. It was not touching the floor. And today, because all of you are here, the altar is going to open on time. Imagine that. Usually it's 10, 15 minutes late. But so when we see the deities, we pay obeisances and we'll get back to business. Uh, though our business is to please Krishna. So when I saw this picture, I immediately got up and I fell head over heels in love with the image that I saw. And I picked it up. I didn't know how it wasn't touching the floor and it was upside down, which was right side up for me because I was facing the other way. And so I felt ashamed because I wanted it. I wanted that picture. But I was thinking, I'm stealing from Tulsi Devi. How low you have to get in order to steal from Tulsi? So I looked for a nail and I found the nail. And then I put the picture and the picture fell in my hand. So I just pulled the nail more and then put it again. And it happened like about 6 times. So after that, I understood that Radha Raman was very merciful and wanted to go with me. So I took him. And I took him to Connecticut to my center. So this is the very same picture. Anyway, so without further ado, there is more appearances and one disappearance today. Today is Krishna Punadola Salila Vihara, Parameshwari Dasta Course disappearance, Radha Raman's Devaji's appearance, Madhavendra Puri's appearance, and Srinivas Acharya's appearance. Sorry, I don't have any more time for you. Thank you for coming to Gita Nagari, and I hope you come again and stay for good. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna Tar Kapoor, wishing you a splendid Krishna conscious day.